What happened at your work which caused multiple people to all quit at once? I used to work at a McDonald's, and we had a terrible manager who hated a lot of people working there. Everyone else hated him too, but no one wanted to call him out on his shit and quit. I was the first to do it, because I requested 2 weeks off in August of that year, about 3 months in advance. My family likes to plan our summer vacations early on. When August came around, he had my schedule set up for all of August off except for those specific 2 weeks. There was no way that he could have misinterpreted my request. When I got my schedule, I stormed into the restaurant, called him out on everything, and then quit on the spot. About 2 weeks after that, I heard from one of my work friends that 5 other people had enough and quit as well. I kind of felt good to be the first. The company consistently outpaced competing firms and found itself emerging as one of the industry leading agencies. This was also a California tech firm, so shorts, flip-flops, beers at lunch, smoking on the roof were all rather common. But we were rapidly growing, and the atmosphere/location made us a hot ticket for talent. Anyway, CFO and CMO cashed out, and the CEO decided to totally remodel the company by making it far more corporate. On top of all of this, they implemented unattainable goals and removed our work from home policy. The final straw was they removed our rather generous vacation policy and replaced it with unlimited vacation, which was a facade for you can take as much vacation as you want if we approve it. Like 1/4 of the company quit and immediately landed at better jobs. Also profit tanked. The owner died, and his idiot son took over and decided that the company didn't make him enough money and started to implement cost-cutting measures like turning off the accounts in the building. Anytime I've seen a mass exodus, it was because of poor management. I've never seen it organized, just a bunch of employees independently deciding to quit in the same month because the management was so bad. I was hired by the new owners to replace the existing manager. I was under the impression that he was moving on to another job somewhere. So after about 4 days I ask him where he's headed and if he's excited. He just looks blankly at me and says, "I'm not going anywhere. I'm just training you as the assistant manager, right?" The look I gave him must have been a great tip-off, because he got up and walked into one of the new owner's offices. After about 30 seconds they were screaming at each other. Then he just storms out of the office, grabs his stuff, gives me the finger, and leaves. Over the next few days I'm trying to calm things with the employees. They are not faulting me, but now have a very bad taste in their mouths about the new ownership. Over about a 7 to 10 day time period my team shrank from 15 people down to 3. I hobbled along with that the best I could while we tried to hire new people, but the new owners were offering so little we had trouble finding people. After 3 months or so of that I started to get fed up and overwhelmed, and when the owners started to get on me about missed deadlines I had it. We were still only at 5 people, 2 of which were brand new and still training. They didn't allow me to refuse work or push deadlines out. They expected the same output as a 15-person team. So after my 3rd day in a row of being berated for missing a deadline that was impossible to make, I quit. New management. In a month, 4 kitchen staff quit, leaving me to be the only original kitchen staff hire from the previous manager. She completely changed the vibe of the workplace. No one was happy. No one felt like talking or listening to music or being friendly. It was robotic. At one of my old jobs new management took over, and she was just awful. She stripped me of a promotion that the previous manager gave me that I worked my ass off for, put trainees on alone during a holiday, just a whole bunch of shit. Like 5 of us got together after the final straw and quit together. Our boss had a meeting and announced new policy that all salaried employees had to work a minimum of 45 billable hours per week because of the increased project load we had. I pointed out to a few co-workers that our employment contracts specified 37.5 hours per week and that I would be adhering to that policy. Well, about a week later I was laid off due to lack of projects. I was happy to go, and at least 2 others left voluntarily within the week. The job I found next was much better and wasn't run by someone quite so clueless about how to treat people. School district I sometimes sub in had a background of hiring. A bunch of building substitutes applied for the jobs, and only about half of them got interviews. Of the subs that got interviews, myself included, the only one who made it past the screening interview was a relative of a current employee. The rest of us subs weren't the right fit. The real reason is that there's a substitute shortage and they don't want to lose any of us. Not a single sub, who isn't a relative, was hired for one of over a dozen teaching jobs. Many of the building subs aren't coming back next year. Worked at the SPCA. The month I was hired on there was a lot of stuff changing, because a couple managerial and senior staff were moving on to other things, so it turned into a shit show when a new manager came in. And then the district manager also tried to screw senior staff of their bonuses, EI, etc. But most controversially was the new manager and her bosses decided that they needed to try and save money. So we stopped spaying and neutering cats and adopted them out that way. Real fucking smart idea. She was also told by the district manager that the SPCA needed more money. So if we got a good purebred dog in off the streets instead of registering it, we should take it home, breed it, care for the pups, on our dime by the way, and then surrender it to the SPCA for some extra income. They also shut down their grooming facilities, which made them roughly 55% of their income. What made me quit was that I was hired to replace their tech, but I wasn't being trained properly because their current tech kept telling me to go clean dog pens or cat rooms instead of showing me how to work the systems properly. So after a month of not being properly trained and me constantly mentioning it to her, I come in one day and find my name omitted from the schedule. The manager's reasoning? Oh, well, you struggled a bit the day you were the only tech, so we dropped you from full-time to on-call. We are going to hire someone else and train them to take over tech. Good job. I already knew about 90% of the job by this point, so you're going to hire someone else and train them like I was being trained? Anyways, I quit. Shit apparently got really bad after as well. All in all, they lost 11 employees in about 3 weeks because of negligence, stupidity, etc. Me and 7 other employees went to the PetSmart on the other side of town as it was just opening and needed employees, so it wasn't completely terrible. But the complete mismanagement at that location was terrible. It was just a tip of the iceberg too. Some of my co-workers regaled me with more stories of shit that happened shortly after I left. I did landscape construction. The cheap ass owner kept taking bigger and bigger projects while never hiring more help. We were all overwhelmed, stressed, and anxious as hell. One of our foremen quit, and I followed suit a few days later. 2 more guys quit the next day. He was down to 3 guys for the obscene amount of work he wanted to do. Of course everything gets way behind schedule, but he's convinced it's not his fault at all. He went out of business less than a year later. I worked at McDonald's back in high school. I was taking off for college at the end of the summer and put my 2-week notice in so I could get August off and actually enjoy it before I had to move away for school. The store manager decided to just not put me on the schedule anymore, which I discovered on the last weekend I was into work. So instead of having those 2 weeks, I was just done. I decided at lunch rush that day that if they weren't going to honor the notice, I wasn't going to honor the 8-hour shift. At about noonish, right after the breakfast crew had left, I was done. The thing was, most of the crew that day were also going off to college and saw what the manager had done. So they fucked off with me. In the middle of lunch rush, the store was down to the old ass lady who worked drive-through and the manager on duty. That's it. The rest of us walked out to cashiers, 3 grill workers. Years ago I worked at a chain salon. My last ever, I swear. There was about 14 of us plus my boss. Half of us were really good, very passionate about what we do, all booked with good clientele. Our boss was wonderful, didn't micromanage, etc. She was a big reason that, while it was a chain, it didn't feel like one. She got fired. The reason given was that she cashed her check at work. She bought product, paid for it with a check, and added an extra $40, so she didn't have to find an ATM before she went to the bar. She had worked for the company for 5 years, had pulled 3 shops into the highest ranking ones in the district, consistently had shops exceeding their numbers, etc. And just like that, she was fired. And even worse, when I came to work the next day, we weren't allowed to talk about it. I texted her and she told me what happened. We didn't quit at once exactly, but over the next 4 months, the top stylists, who brought in 70% of the revenue, left. We took our clientels with us and all of us went to smaller, private salons. This was several years ago now, but I still keep up with them. We've all found our niches in hair, make way more money, and are way happier for it, including my old boss. She's about to buy the salon she works at. If it didn't happen, I don't know when I would have left, to discover I prefer barbering/men's styling over women's. It was a blessing in disguise at the very least.